Hannah Cruz stars in the musical Suffs on Broadway. I'm David Buchanan with Gold Derby. Hannah, you star as suffragist Inez Milholland, but in the public run of the show, you played a totally different role. So I wanted to ask you, what has that journey been like for you, starting, with the musical in a totally different role and now transferring to Broadway as a different character?
It's been very interesting. I'm really grateful that between the public and Broadway, I got a workshop where I got to play Inez, and then I got a reading where I got to play Inez. So I got to kind of find her, and I got to take my time. But the interesting thing about Ruja and Inez is they're on their faces, you would look at them and you would think they couldn't be more different, but they're actually incredibly similar. And in the public run, I remember Pippa, who played Inez, and I were very close and on stage and off because the characters are like two sides of the same coin. They grew up in very different circumstances. One is a Polish shirtwaist factory worker, and one is a socialite, jet setter. Well, she traveled on a lot of ships, and she was well off, and just different backgrounds, but they were both socialists. They were both very radical. They both loved to drink and loved to smoke and loved to socialize. And so they have a lot of the same core values, but they just hold themselves very differently. But I, at first, playing Inez was hard because I would be doing these scenes in which I used to play Ruja, and hearing Ruja's lines and knowing that it wasn't mine, but that it was very interesting. And then also shedding the Polish dialect was kind of difficult, strangely enough, because I had slid so far into it. But now I can't really imagine playing anybody but Inez. So that's the way it goes. But it's really cool to get to see a show from different perspectives like that. It's rare, and so I'm grateful for it, actually.
Yeah, it must be an incredibly unique experience. I didn't personally know much about Inez before seeing the musical. I wonder, how much did you know about her before doing the public run, even though you weren't playing her at the time, but learning about her through the show? And how much research you did once you stepped into the part to really discover, who this person was and what to bring to the role?
Yeah, I didn't know anything about any of these women. I think I knew about Alice Paul, and I think I knew about Carrie Cat, but I did not know about any of these women. And so I learned everything Shayna taught me. And I've learned a lot more about, and I learned a lot about Ruja. There's not as much written about Ruja, but there's a good amount written about Inez, especially because she was the public face of the movement. So I have a couple great books on her. One is all from the suffrage newspaper that they wrote, and it's all little clips from the paper that have to do with her. And then I'm reading The Life and Times of Inez by Linda Loomson right now. And it's great because I have a big break in the show. And I read the book during the break to kind of keep me in the show. And I like continuing to learn about her, even though we're open, because I find when preparing for a role, if you cram and read books on books on books and listen to podcasts and watch movies, it's almost too much to even let it nuance your work. But if you nibble and snack on things, then it's you can add different colors into your performance, and then it's building blocks for me. So, but this Inez was so fascinating for her time. She was she believed in free love. She had so many suitors. It's kind of insane. And she would just drive these men crazy. And it's kind of amazing to read about. She would and she was would always go for married men, or they would go for her, I guess. And she would never really be interested. And then the minute they said they loved her, she was over it. She was immediately over it. She actually also, in the show, Alva Belmont, played by Emily Skinner, Inez and Alva were very, very close. And they would have dinners all the time. They sailed on the Lusitania before the tragedy happened, which is kind of crazy that they were on that ship together. and she was very close with her father and her mother and her sister, and she's a really fascinating woman. And the more I read about her, the more excited I am to get to do the show as her every night, because it's an honor to get to play such a fucking like badass woman. Because I even today she would be radical and incredible, and so to think of back then is like almost unimaginable. Um, so I'm just, yeah, I'm really honored to get to pay tribute to her.
Yeah, she is such a charismatic figure, and you play her so charismatically. And you have so many early moments that are great, and then the kind of early climax of Act One is the march, of course, where Inez is on that horse, and you're kind of marching forward, and the direction is by Lee Silverman is so great. I
Yeah.
just want to ask you what it feels like for you, because you are, sitting high on that horse. You're kind of leading the charge metaphorically for the entire company. What is that scene like for you to perform that anthem sitting high, kind of looking out, not only on the audience, but also on your fellow castmates? I mean, it must be an incredible moment.
Yeah, it's one of my favorites. It's the first group, it's the first like full cast number of the show. Um, and it's I'm way more comfortable with it now, but it's like it's quick. It's a really quick change into the horse stuff and then onto the horse. But then I get to like sit on the horse and see all my castmates in the wings and like give them a thumbs up and tell them we're gonna do it. And then I get to, because they're all doing like all of these really crazy and cool grid formations by Mike Natalia on the stage while I'm sitting on the horse. And I get to look out and connect with everyone, and I don't get to see everybody in the show all the time. And so I have so many great moments with Jen Colella, with Emily Skinner, with Jenna Bainbridge. I get to like Nikki, I get to look at Nikki at this great moment that I love. And I've started to well up every night when we're doing, there's a section where the horse pulls back and it's this beautiful melody of like, I want your great granddaughter to know I was here. And oh my God, I well up every night now. And then I also get to take in like kind of the enormity of the theater, which is really amazing. And my favorite thing as an actor to get to do is to look out into like the really like vast darkness of the theater. And sometimes in the music box, it's interesting. For the first time, I've never had this experience in a theater, but sometimes I can see like every single face. Um, Even in the mezzanine, I've never had that experience before, but in the march, it's like a sea of darkness. And I really love just like staring out into that. It's like almost a religious experience. And you get to paste anything you like onto that. And it makes my job as an actor a lot easier when you can create your own space like that. And so that's, yeah, the march is powerful. I really love doing it.
It is so powerful. And then, a couple moments or scenes later, we get this incredibly fun number, GAB, Great American Bitch, which is just, I
Yeah.
mean, I think the audience just goes crazy for it. It's so much fun. And you have such a great verse speaking about how Inez is so, amorous, as you said earlier. It's just so much fun. So how important is that humor to the show? Because it is a very, it's grappling with very important subject and, inequality in many different forms, but you just get a moment to kind of make fun of that horrible misogyny that these women are facing, and it's really empowering but also fun number. So how fun is that for you to do?
I mean, it's hard to pick a favorite part of the show, but that is always like kind of a touchstone for, or like a foundational stone for me, because regardless of how anything else has gone, we get to have fun with each other in that moment. And I think it's so important that we have that song, because I think humanizing these women and getting to see them celebrating and happy together and friends only makes the rest of the show more impactful. And I think if we can laugh with them and see them be real, it it only makes us want to follow their journey more. So that number is like, it's incredibly integral to the entire piece. Um, and it's really fun. We drink ginger ale and sometimes it spills. The other day, I was like upside down on the table and I thought I was touching Nadia Doris Stevens' chin, but I was touching her glass and it spilled all over her. And we were laughing and it was great. Um, because that's what that number like gets to be. It gets to be like silly, and also like, you know, we're taking back the moniker of bitch, and we're like subverting it and putting it on its head and making it for us. So it's important, but it is also silly.
Yeah, and unfortunately, after that moment, it's not an easy road for Inez. I mean, it's a very emotional arc of where she goes. And there's that great scene you share with Alice Paul, Shayna Taub, where you kind of confess that you can't do it anymore, especially, you know, she's having a really hard time conceiving and she really wants to have a family. How much do you think that weighs on her as a character? Because we do see her at this really kind of a breaking point, and she does kind of soldier on, you know, for better or worse as we see unfold. But how much does that weigh on her and on you in that moment when you're kind of giving voice to that frustration?
Yeah, I start to color in small moments of that during Worth It, because the way I see it, she first they're trying to conceive. She first gets the news that she can't conceive, and that is frustrating to her. And then she knew she was anemic. She knew it for years. And she knew that she was pushing herself too hard. And so I think I always imagine right before that scene with Shayna that the doctor and my husband have told me that I can't do it. And like very seriously and sternly, and not just like, oh, well, you think I can't do it? Watch me try. But like, actually, no, you can't do this. And knowing Alice and knowing how persuasive she is, I go in thinking like I'm gonna Inez my way out of this. And it's like putting up the mask and putting up the mask until I can't anymore. And that is like very difficult for Inez to do. And the only like she said, Alice is the only person who could convince her to do this. And it's really sad when you think about it retroactively, because like Alice obviously doesn't know what's happening, and so she wouldn't use any of these tactics to get Inez to say yes if she did know. But she says like, "Don't you want your daughter or your children to look up to you in this way?" And if you say that to Inez, she's gonna be like, "Yeah, I can do it. I can do anything." And it's yeah, it's really heartbreaking. But that scene with Shayna before Show Them Who You Are is probably my favorite part of the show. I love that scene. It's so different every night. Um, and it's so well written. Um, that like to bridge the gap of like the Inez face of it all and where it falls is really, it's just really, it's, as an actor, it's really fun to do.
Yeah, and of course we get that incredible moment from you when Inez can't withstand anymore and collapses. And in that number, you sing this note in How Long. I think your voice reaches every inch of the music box. I mean, it is a stunning moment. How do you prepare for that? I mean, it's a very vocally, it's demanding, physically, it's demanding. You know, Inez collapses on that, you know, upper level of the stage. I mean, it's an incredible moment. And must be taxing. So how are you preparing for that moment when it arrives?
When the campaign first starts, when I'm down on the deck, I almost like forget it's about to happen until it starts happening. And then I finish my speeches, I run off, and I'm usually very out of breath. And my wonderful stage manager and dresser are usually there telling me that I can do it, because some days I'm just like I can't do it. But there's something about that moment of the show is like where I could really drop in. And like I really am blessed, because my favorite thing as an actor is getting a sequence where I can give absolutely everything I have. That is my favorite thing to do. And so it's the part of the show I honestly almost never worry about, because I know that that's my wheelhouse, and I get to go up there and it's just me and the audience, and it's I get to like really imagine what it must have been like for Inez to give that final speech in California, and like slowly realizing that she's losing her breath, slowly realizing that it's getting hotter, and it's like, well, it's too late now, so I might as well just like scream for this cause that I've been trying to make you all understand for so long. Like it's it's like it really is like her last scream for attention, and like and letting go of the trappings of like formality of a speech. um and yeah, so there's not, I really don't vocally, I try not to really think about it so much as just like saying the words and letting the the emotional honesty of the moment take me where it needs to take me. And I also don't think about the fall, because if I think about the fall, then I'll mess it up. So I just have to like let the moment be real.
We do see Inez one more time in the second act as Inez, and we won't say exactly how. But before I let you go, Hannah, I do want to ask you about when you return in the final number, Keep Marching, which is such a powerful anthem, an incredible kind of note to end the show on. And I just wanted to ask you, as you're performing that, what does that kind of message mean to you personally? The idea that, you know, we've won some progress, there's so much more progress to fight for, you know, so keep pursuing it. What does that mean for you as an actor and as a person as you get to do it, you know, 8 shows a week?
My favorite line of the show is in that number. Um, and it's simple, but it's, the world can be changed. We've done it before. And at that moment, we're all in a line, like looking out at the audience. And I think that's the most inspiring thing I could hear. Like, you just watched all of these women. We just reenacted for you the progress that they made in their time period with like way less resources than we have now. And they did it, not fully. Again, like the fight is not finished, but they did. I mean, the 19th Amendment was a step. And I think seeing that and knowing it can be done before, if it's been done before, we can do it again. So I think, like, rather than it being like a finale of this show, it's more of like a beginning of the next step. And I think that's such a great thing to be able to leave the audience with. And uh and I get to see like the faces of we've had like a lot of little girls in the audience, which really does it for me. I just like seeing moms with their little girls is like, it really gets me. And we want people to like be done with the show and feel like tingling in their blood. Like there's more to be done here. And so I think that finale like perfectly encapsulates that feeling.
It really does. Hannah Cruz, congratulations on Suffs. Thank you so much for talking to Gold Derby.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.